And today I want to talk about Venus wisdom on a Venus day, and that is Venus in light sect. So, what does it mean? The notion of light sects is something that I learned first from the astrology podcast, and this is a Hellenistic technique. It basically divides the planets, the seven traditional planets, into, hello there, um, sects. And that means the sect of the sun and the sect of the moon. It's kind of like a team. We have a sports team, we have one team and the other team. So Venus is the benefic of sects of the moon. Okay, she is the fortune bringing, good fortune bringing planet of those who have the moon more dominant in their chart. And Jupiter is for the sun, and this is a Venus day Jupiter hour. And yeah, so for the so how do you know which sect you are? Basically, you need to know your birth time for this. And if the sun is between the ascendant and the seventh house and the descendant, then it is a night sect, and so Venus is your benefic of sect. Okay, you look at the sun, not at the moon, at the sun. If the sun is below the horizon, this is a night sect. If the sun is between the descendant and the ascendant, so basically between the 8th house and the 12th house inclusive, then this is a day sect. And that would mean that your fortune of sect, your planet of sect, is Jupiter, and Venus would be your benefic out of sect. Now, as for the sects themselves, so we have the sun, the benefic of sect is Jupiter, the malefic of sect is Saturn, and so Mars would be the more problematic because it is the malefic out of sect. Okay, for the moon, the benefic of sect is Venus, the malefic of sect is Mars, and so the more problematic planet is going to be Saturn because it is the malefic out of sect. Okay, so at first I kind of just let this go from one ear to another because the whole notion of malefics was to me something that you want to address, understanding that what is called malefic, this is Mars and Venus, Mars and Saturn, are very benefic. Okay, you really need to know when to let go, which is Saturn, and to rest and to dedicate yourself to something, which is Saturn. You really need to know when to sever ties. Notice the difference between letting go and severing ties, which is Mars, to assert yourself, which is Mars. Okay, these are not bad things, but their action is actually to decrease something. Okay, to yeah. Although Mars can be to gain something, and Saturn eventually, when you put it in the dedication, is to gain something. But Saturn is also the limitation. So like when I dedicate myself to this, I don't dedicate myself to other things. So Mars, when I put my drive and passion here, I don't put my drive and passion in other places, at least not at the same moment. So that is enlarge the notion of sex. You ask, what about Mercury? Mercury is just Mercury. Mercury, it's going, it's playing with everybody. Okay, it's adaptable. It's playing with everybody. So from this, you understand that if something is your benefic of sect, then this is the person this is the planet that brings you fortune, your team. Okay, something is your benefic out of sect, it can actually mean that it brings benefit to the other team. Okay? Now you ask me what happens if I'm ruled like me, by Jupiter and I'm a night chart. Okay, so ruled by, I don't know. It's a combination of things. So when you want to emphasize on what's good in your chart, you really there are a couple of parameters that you look at. One of them is who is the benefic of sect. So when Venus is your benefic of sect, then Venus brings connection, she brings values, she brings assets, beauty, grace, she brings nice voice, sensuality, and for some perhaps a sense of passion, love of nature, because she rules flowers in general. She rules the color green. So Mercury and Venus are both the color green. And her day is Friday. Her night is Monday. Yes, her night is, no, her night is Sunday. Sorry. Monday's, no, mixing. Her night is Monday. Sol day is Jupiter night, and then we have Venus. So those are the Venus times. And now it depends where is Venus in your chart. Okay, so if you are a night chart, if Venus is your benefic of sect, you can call upon her to also remedy things you have in Taurus, in Libra, perhaps to some degree even in Pisces. Okay, and you, depending on the houses where you'll see the benefit. So let's say you're ruled by Venus and this is your benefic sect, and it's probably going to be, depending on where Venus is, it's going to be your beauty, a life path that has to do with either balancing something, and if it's Libra or Taurus, or having assets. You could also be artistic or even musical. If Venus is in your second house or in your second house, then this is the benefit of income. Now, it can be that Venus will need a remedy. Okay, you might need to wear, whether it's green crystals or green color, or you're going to need to work with Venus, or there maybe Venus is not finely aspected, and you're going to need, maybe you can look to the moon. Okay, so this is going to benefit you on your material assets, how you make money, how you spend money, and your values, which is also second house. If Venus is your third house, then this is a house for daily routines and communications. You could be living in a nice neighborhood. You could be having nice neighbors or good connections with neighbors. When you remedy Venus, then, or accentuate on Venus, then this is a place where you could also have relationships. Okay, if you're a man and Venus is your benefic of sect, you could meet someone at the neighborhood. Okay, you could also have a business to do with beauty or music or art or even finances or banking even. Like banking has associated with many things, but also Venus and Mars. Fourth house. So if your benefic of sect is in the fourth house or ruling the fourth house, your house can be very pleasant. It can be actually nice looking, very pleasant to be around, again, especially when you remedy Venus, and your upbringing could be a place that you enjoy. I was just beginning to watch a short by Akech Joy, and she has a video with her father. So I don't know where her Venus is or where her benefic sect is, But obviously, there's very beautiful harmony there, okay, in the home with the father. So if you have it in the fourth house, your upbringing, your relationship with your mother or your father, or when you grow your own family, could be a place that you actually lean on. Of course, Venus could be having, an opposition to Pluto, and you need to address that. You addressed it by adding things that are Pluto Venus trine, and I will talk about that too when I talk about um, outer planets to inner planets. So this is fourth. If this is the fifth, Venus, if benefic of Sect, could be your child, that you could have good relations with your child. Your child can be very beautiful. Or your hobbies, maybe you have a hobby that is Venusian, artistic, or even fiscal. Okay, Venus is also like cars. You could like cars a lot. Okay, um, I have Sun in the third house in which is also transportation, and in Venus sign, and Sun is also the father, and my father is actually a car engineer, okay, it's a technician that can build cars. So this is another place where you can have a benefit, or you can have a hobby to do with actually, cars. If Venus is like aspecting Saturn or something like Mercury, then you could have a engineering of cars even. Okay, it's not just music and the voice or beauty, or makeup or connection, but you could actually do something with vehicles. Venus in the sixth house, you might be working in a certain industry to do with Venusian. It could be from fiscal industry to beauty industry to music industry. But sixth house is also pets, so you could have very beautiful pets, Venusian pets. That is very beautiful, very photogenic even, um, or or you could have enemies that are beautiful, but enemies that you gain from. If it's your benefic of Sect, you can have a combination of, hey, this is my enemy, but I actually gain something from them. Maybe you quarrel with them and you actually benefit from them, or they act with the enmity in such a way so to sweeten it, so to buy you in, or to make you kind of because Venus tends to win-win, to do win-win. So you could have an enemy, okay, a competitor or enemy, but it's actually winning you over. But then you need to look at other aspects and other things, but you could be gaining actually from enemies. Um, for the sixth house, it's always good to have a pet around you because that's very remedial of those sixth house things. And it's also health. So we need to address either the kidneys if it's Libra, or the throat. And you could have good voice and good health, but also because it is in the sixth house activating, you would need to care, okay, to care for this Venus. So you could have the potential to know how to care for your voice, or to know how to care for your kidneys, and for that to be actually easier for you, and to have good health. You need to maintain it, but you have potential to have good health. If it's the seventh house, so this is relationships. And in this case, your good fortune can come through relationship. You could have assets through relationships. You could have a partner that is very beautiful, or you could have actually relationships that give you this sense of connection, to feel loved, pleasure in life, and basically the little funs and joys of Venus. And if you have Venus in the eighth house, so even though Venus is benefic of Sect, eighth house still is about tending to our traumas, is about the generational stuff. So you would need to tend to your eighth house to get the benefit. But when you do, you could have very deep relationships, very, very intimate. You could have assets with someone you're in a relationship with. Um, oh my. You could have a generational wealth. You could inherit paintings, okay? We could invest in paintings, have shared wealth to do with art, with beauty, um, that are working for you. Okay, well, you would still deal with it, with that being an eighth house, but those are the things you could gain when you deal with that. If Venus is in the ninth house, you could really enjoy traveling, but also you could be studying, for example, in a academic institution that is looking very beautiful. Or you could be studying something to do with the Venusian, and that is the voice, but it's also women. Like you could end up studying gender studies or something like that with that Venus. Also, you yourself could be a teacher, and through that, in that place, have connections. And again, you need to look at the situation for Venus. And so, curating Venus is basically going to make your ninth house pop. And that can also be your spirituality, um, and your uh, religion or the lack of. Okay. And so, morality of beauty, beauty and aesthetics, you could be studying stuff like that, or you could be paying attention in your philosophy to the philosophy of beauty and philosophy of aesthetics, and so on and so forth. Um, Venus in your 10th, again, this can be one of the parents that is giving you this sense of connection, benefit, connections. Okay. Also, your boss, you could get connections through your boss. Okay, with this one, and this is where your boss could fetch you up actually with someone, or you could be in a relationship with your boss, and if it's well aspected, you might be in one of the people where it's not a me too case, where it's actually working. Depending on the seventh house, you have like connections between the seventh and the 10th, then for you that can actually be something that works for you. And if you have, or it could be a boss or something to do with beauty, or you could be, you could be a model, representative, diplomat. With Libra, also judges, you could be a judge, and so on and so forth, a lawyer. Venus in the 11th house. So 11th house is crowdfunding, and that means that your investments in things to do with the Venusian could be yielding. Again, you have to see where Venus is and what's it aspecting. 11th house means your colleagues and associates. Okay, you can have good connections with them, and they can kind of like connections that make connections. That can also be the case. You could have investors in your ideas, in your goals, and you can have goals that are to do with women being in better situation, with anything to do with improving the life of that which is women or sisterhood. So yeah. And if Venus is in your 12th house, so Venus in your 12th house can give you a lot of astral realm connections. So you could be connecting with spirits, you could be connecting with people, but on the astral, you could be, yes, you could be having hidden affairs, but if the Venus is okay and is cured, you could actually be having benefit and gain from your bedroom affairs. Okay, it doesn't mean you're a sex worker. It just means that sometimes, you get connected with the person. You have to keep the relationship a secret. And you, with the 12th house, it might work for you. Okay. But depending on the placement. And if that is the case, you have to pay attention to the connection between sex chakra and throat chakra. Okay. Because you don't want to oppress the throat, or agree to oppress your throat chakra when it comes to the sex chakra. And so even though you might want to keep something secret, depending on the housing, you could end up actually desiring to talk or desiring to expose, and that coming, in a very uncontrolled way, and that can cause a lot of drama, a lot of yellow pages. But all in all, you could actually gain also from loss. Okay, eighth house is eighth house, 12th house is another house where there is loss, and so the meaning of the 12th is not lost here, funnily enough, but your loss could actually be your gain. Okay, And that is another thing to pay attention to. Okay, so those are the Venus houses. Oh yeah, the star of the show. Those are the Venus houses, and and this is when your Venus is benefic of sect. If she's benefic out of sect, then you could have the same topics coming up, but the thing is that Venus is the player for the other team. And so there are ways to deal with that. Either you just, go to Jupiter, or you approach Venus and ask her to favor you, and that can be another way to deal with that. And that can absolutely work for you. You can petition Venus, you can donate to things that kind of like alleviate anything that is problematic that Venus could benefit on your account rather than with you. But you can also play to your cards and go to the benefic of sect, which is Jupiter. And so we can't really finish this episode without talking a bit about the outer planets and how to heal those situations where you have Venus in hard aspects. It is also true to personal planets. Okay, so it's general. What happens when we have Venus off sect, out of sect, but especially off sect now, but she's hard aspecting things. So in this case, some of it will happen naturally along your life, but you could also do it consciously. What you're going to need is what is hard aspecting Venus and what Venus being, person, talisman has a trine or a sextile instead of a square or an opposition or an inconjunct. Okay, so you want the trine or sextile. Let's say Venus is opposing Mars. Okay, Venus opposing Mars can give great attraction, but it's kind of like one person is like, hey, let's go to the dungeon, and the other person is just want to read a book together and then cuddle. So you have this, what Mars wants and what Venus wants are opposite. And so while there is great attraction, because opposites attract sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes, to actually implement that is tricky. Now, if it's in your natal chart, what you can do is basically to invite into your life situations or relationship where you have in the synastry, in the composite, or in the other person's chart, Venus sextile Mars, Venus trine Mars. Okay, and so that can remediate upon your own difficulty with these planets. Okay, and this is also true to outer planets. Let's say you have Venus opposition Pluto, like I do. Then you will see along your life, with some Pluto transits and even the harsh ones, you might attract to your life people who have Pluto sextile or Pluto trine your Venus. And you want that. Okay, because they remedy your inner conflict. That is, and this is how we can also approach. So we can approach remediation by curating the planet itself. And when you tend to this planet, you will see that you attract, you draw in these connections. That when you look at charts, and sometimes you would have, if you're non-monogamous, you will see, let's say you have one partner with whom you remedied a Venus opposition Saturn, okay? And they have Venus trining your Saturn. But they have Moon, you have Moon opposing Saturn, which is emotional coldness and criticism. And so what comes into your life is another partner. They have Moon trining your Saturn. So now you're having this interconnectedness where one person you get this curation for the Saturn Venus, and for the other person you get in this curation for the Saturn Moon. Okay, so that is a situation where you will draw in and you will be drawn into people that offer the remedy. Okay, if it's a relationship, When it is outer planet, now when it is inner planets, then you see it on the day-to-day. Okay. When it is outer planets, they can be an intergenerational gap. Now, this is especially true if you have Venus to Saturn hard aspects, or Venus to Saturn aspects, or you have Saturn ruling the seventh house or fifth house Saturn even. Um, and so you can see that you will draw into your life people that have generational gap. And so the the Pluto trines to Pluto, Pluto sextiles to Pluto, because they would need to be from a different generation to have a different angle to your personal planets. And in this case, you still want to make sure that that the connection is actually working. But you can also understand that this is sometimes it is not a person wanting to be or desiring to be like manipulative or overpower. Sometimes genuine relationships where you both cure some aspects, you both offer remedy, you alleviate some difficulty, some struggle between a personal planet and an interpersonal planet. Yeah. Or, for example, you're having a hard Pluto aspect to your Venus or to a planet, and then comes a relationship that has the Pluto trine, the Pluto sextile, to alleviate, to make it easier for you to go through these transits. And it also means that you came to deal sometimes with intergenerational stuff or to change something for society when it's outer planets, which I took a lot. I have Venus to the outer planets video that I made, I think about a year ago. Yeah. So you could watch that one. And I have I think I have the hardest, but I have recent video that I made about outer planets to inner planets. I've made one about Mercury. I don't know if I released that. So that is the Venus wisdom on a Venus day for today. And you can really see that when I talk about Venus is in my third house, but I have the ruler of the sixth in my third, which is a vlog, and the ruler and Venus is in my sixth house now. So I have basically a black and white cat on my lap as I'm broadcasting on a Friday. Oh, this is the sweetest. So this is definitely Venus joy. Okay. So, and also Sun joy. So if you have something in Libra or in Taurus that is giving you a bit of a hard time, then you could ask Venus, if she's your benefic sect, you could ask Venus to curate that, to remedy that. And you can try and see if it works for you. This is a tip that I got actually from Caitlin Kopak from Sphere and Sundry for planetary remediation. But again, though, of course, it's one thing in a conglomerate of considerations. So you would need to do your own magic and see if that tips works for you, because it's very difficult to say do this one thing when it's actually a system that you need to look at, and you need to see how does this one thing works with the system, and kind of see for yourself. So again, for Venus, Venus rules anything green. So green clothes, green, nail polish. I had experience with nail polish today. Makeup, like for eyeshadow, anything. Well, food perhaps also greens. She rules flowers. Okay, so add in flowers. What is your texture or your background if you're a broadcaster? She rules paintings and art and music. So just coming in contact with Venus, and of course bless things of the Venus nature. And she rules women, of course. So this is a Venus wisdom on a Venus day. And whether she's benefic of sect or out of sect, you can turn to her and see how it goes, okay? If not, you can turn to Jupiter and ask what you want from Jupiter. So maybe Jupiter is better able to assist you. And you can try, if let's say your Venus is, I don't know, in Scorpio, where she's in detriment, or in Aries, where she's in fall, then, and your Jupiter is like in Capricorn, okay? Then you can see who is the benefic of sect, but also you can go to the moon, you can go to other planets, you can go to Mercury, which is communication and trade, so it can give you a lot of these things that you're trying to achieve with the benefics. Again, Mercury is usually something you can pretty much turn to, depending on how it's aspected again. So, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So that is for today, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye bye.